Right, so today I'm going to work on getting the Pyodide working in a web worker. I read this part, and it's actually not that. I was thinking it was more complicated than it was. It's kind of what I'm already doing with my other web worker in a way. Just the only difference is the import scripts I have is the mscripting stuff, like minimum JS, I think, and then pretty much the only difference is this. I'll be using import scripts for Pyodide. So. There's a few more things I might add that I see in here that I think are kind of nice. Although this is like my init function, as usual on message. Some of this stuff I won't have to, probably won't do. They even say down here, this section here is optional. It's just a design choice, and you can do it however you want it. So, anyways, I think it'll pretty much um, be the same as what I'm already doing, a little bit different. So before I get to that though, just a couple quick things. Right now I'm connecting to uh, Lightsail Debian Linux server, and I've been doing that, and um, because using mscripting on there on Linux is much easier. There was a couple other options I could have done instead, so I want to just cover those really quick. I talked about them before, but another thing I could have done instead of doing that is just create a VM on my own computer um, with Linux. A couple other things I could have used Docker, I think. Docker, we just get like Docker desktop, um, and use that to use like a Docker image. That's another way. Another way would have done Windows subsystem for Linux, WSL, Windows. So I haven't used this yet. I haven't set it up. I don't know why I'm avoiding it, but I haven't set that up, and I don't have Docker on my computer right now, so. I went with this. Well, I was thinking about going with this route, but then I ended up just doing the easy route and going with Lightsail. It's also nice it's a remote computer, so I could like have a backup copy saved on something that's not my own computer. Although I don't have the backup also on my own computer, so really only have one. Although I do have a backup on here of some stuff. And really I should be using Git anyways and pushing some stuff up to a Git repository or remote one. Not doing that yet, I don't think, but maybe I'll do that soon. But really quick about setting this up. So an issue I had on another stream that I didn't record was I don't think I recorded it. Was setting up the guest additions. So I could not figure out how to do it after the fact. I didn't spend too much time on it. But when you initially set one up, so if you go to new, and you set up a new VM, it gives you an option to check that. I recommend checking that option because when I did and I set up a brand new one, it just sets it up for you. You don't have to worry about anything. So it was a lot easier that way. And what that allows you to do multiple things, but one of the nicest things is it allows you to have full screen, not scaled mode. It actually looks like you're using it on like it's your own computer basically. So instead of inside the VM. So that's nice. And there's some other things it does too. And I was looking for like all these menus, this menu up here of things I could do, like enable to use the clipboard. You have to select one of these, and you can turn these, switch them on and off. And that wasn't there, but that fixed all of it. And I couldn't find this guest edition CD image or how to do that. So I'm sure there was another way to do it the way I had it set up, but anyways, it's all set up now. Again, I would check it when you're initially setting it up. And then once you already have one set up, I would actually not make any settings changes because I think, or any installations or upgrades, 'cause I think it's nice to have like a base setup and then you can clone that. So I set this one up. I have not touched it. I don't plan on messing with it. And then all you do is you right click on it and go clone. And then let me just do it really quick. And then you name it whatever, and then I just leave these settings the way they are, and then I do a full clone. That's it. So then anytime you want to do something that you might think could mess up your, your VM or whatever, or you just want to have a clean copy, you can just clone this original one. So that's a nice thing to have. So I have two. This is the one I was working on now, and I'll show in just a second. And this is a one I haven't even messed with, so it's basically the same as the one up here. And that's just one ready to go if I want one. Couple of things I did set up on here. So all I did was set up these two scripts: activate venv and create venv. And all that does is it goes into the directory where I have, well, this is a variable. So you can do Python, not Python, activate venv. What's up with that sound? Well, let me fix the sound really quick. Really make sure it's turned off. All right, there we go. So if you do source, activate venv, and then you pass in the environment that you want to activate. I have one called dev already. It'll activate it from within here. So it's just easier, I guess, a little bit than remembering to type it all out. And then from anywhere, I think you could type deactivate. It'll deactivate it. So that's a little script I set up. What was the other one? Create. So the same thing here. If it was run the command and create a new one. So yeah, I thought that was a nice, easy thing to set up. I think I installed Git on here as well. I installed, I don't know, something else. But another thing too, coming back to what I was talking about earlier with remoting into the machine. So I could obviously, especially with the new setup where the guest edition's on here and the screen is full screen and all that, I could do some coding on here and stuff. But I kind of have everything set up in VS Code on my own computer. So I think it is still nice to be able to remote in the same way I'm doing through this light sail server in VS Code. And you could do that. The first thing you need to do is set up SSH. So there's a process to that. You have to create a key pair. I'll just quickly go over it. There's a bunch of instructions and videos online that covers this, but I'll just quickly go over what I did. So you can create a key pair like that. I did it on the VM itself, but you can do it on your other computer. But I think it makes more sense to do it on the VM because the order of things you have to do to get it to work. So that will create two files. It'll create a private key and a public key. And then here's another example. And this one has like a contact information, but you don't need that. You could just do this part. And once you do that, um, on your VM, this is where I recommend you do that first. You put the public key, and I think it already puts it inside of your SSH folder. So if you go in ls that slash that, hold on. How do I get rid of that sound? Let me just mute it really quick. Uh, yeah, that. So you have this private key and public key. So the private key you don't need to keep in here, and maybe you shouldn't have in there. I don't know. They also recommend changing the permissions on this, I think, I think it's, I don't remember 100%, but I think it's chmod 600. And then it will make sure, I forgot what that does, but it changes the permissions to make it more secure. Um, yeah, I don't remember if that's the exact thing that you do, but it's something like that. And all the tutorials online will probably tell you that, or most of them will. Anyways, so yeah, the public key's in there, and what you want to do is you copy over the public key into this authorized keys file, and if you don't already have that file, you can create it just with nano, or you can just do touch authorized keys or whatever. And then there is a command with SSH to copy it over into that file, but you could also just use cat the public key Why is that not coming through? Oh, because I'm not in this folder. But anyways, you do cat this file, cat that file, whatever it is, and then you redirect the output into authorized keys. And if you already have something in there, you'd probably want to use that to append it instead of the single, which will, I think, overwrite everything. Yeah, there's also a command, I think an SSH something command to do that as well. I don't remember what that is. And then you want to grab this private key. You can just view the output and then copy it and then paste it over on your other computer, or there's other ways to get it over there. And that goes on the computer that you're using SSH into, in my case, my regular computer. And then you can put that, or should put that, inside of the your folder, your SSH folder, for instance, on Windows. So it would go here, and then you connect. So you go SSH, um, your username at localhost, and there's more setup there, which I'll get to in just a second, to set it up where it connects actually. But once you do that, it'll ask you if you want to add it to known hosts or something like that, or I forgot what it says. You type yes. If you type yes, it adds it to known hosts. And then from there, it knows that one, it's going to use a certain identity file, so it stores that information. So from then on, you only have to type this. But the first time, you have to type SSH, and then or -I, and then the path to the identity file. But then once it adds it to known host, it stores identity file for that connection in there, and you only need to type this. I'm sure you could do some setup too in the config, so you don't have to do that. And then if you're gonna connect through VS Code, you want to set up the config again. So that's what that looks like. Local, I just set it up under that name, and then you want to type localhost there, your username, and then the path to the identity file, just like we did before. And then there is one other thing. And before you set up VS Code, I'd make sure you can get in just through SSH and get batch or whatever. And you should see the prompt, and you should be able to, navigate around and list things and whatnot. When you're done there, you can type exit. It'll close the connection and log out. What else was there to say about that? I don't think anything else. But as far as the connection, one thing you have to do on the VM, you have to go to settings, machine settings. You have to go to network, advanced, port forwarding. You want to make sure port 22 is open. I'm pretty sure you should definitely be putting a host IP and a guest IP there. If you do leave them out, it will work, but I think it's more secure if you put those. And I don't know for sure what those numbers should be. But this article, or this post here, where is that? Talks about that. Basically, he says to open up port 127.0.1.1. I'm not sure if you can use 127.0.0.1, which is usually what I've seen, or you need to do that. I don't know. Um, I'll look into that later, but for now, I'm not even going to be using it. I was just testing, so I didn't put in either one of those. I just did the ports and it worked. And then he says on the other, for the guest, you can use this one. So I don't know. Something to look at if you're interested in that. Um, so that's opening the ports. There's one more thing you have to do. So the first thing I would do is check and see if you have SSHD running. That's the process that's the SSH server that's running on the VM that'll allow you to log in through SSH. If you type this in and it's not running, I think you could also type this in, see if it's running. If you don't see anything like this, then it's not running, and you need to install it. So to install it, um, here's the command: sudo apt install. At least it worked for me on Ubuntu. Maybe it's different other places. Sudo apt install that, and then and then you want to, they talk about copying this SSHD config and setting the permissions so you can't modify it. I think that's a good idea. And then this article from Ubuntu.com talks about different things involved with that. They talk about restarting it, dude. They provide like 2 different commands. So here's one command they have to restart it, so you can use that to restart it. There's one further down too, if you want to check this out, you can use to restart it. But you will have to restart it after you change the settings. And there's a couple settings I recommend that you change. Um, One of them is for sure you want to change this to no password authentication. But there's also a few more this place says, which I don't know if you need to do these. I just know this. If you don't do this, then it'll still it'll still allow you to log in with a password. Um, if you want, and really you want to just be logging in with your SSH key. It's more secure, I believe, and it's easier to work with too. You could also set an additional password on that key, which I have as well. But and like yeah, when I do this, it asks me for a passphrase as well. So that's a separate password that's even more secure, right? It's not just a password. But yeah, here's a few more things that maybe you can look into setting if you want. But I just did this one here, password authentication, change that to no, and then save the file. And the file you want to save is etc sshd config. I did have some issues. I was changing SSH config and nothing was happening. It was still allowing me to log in with password. Make sure you're changing SSHD config because they're in the same folder. So that's that. Um, and this guy talks about it. This guy was having some issues where things weren't getting changed, or his changes weren't affecting anything, and he's been doing the same thing as me. This guy says make sure you're using SSHD config, modifying that, and not SSH config, which would be for the client. Okay, so that's that. I'll get back to this invalid format. Almost done with this stuff. Once you make a change to that SSHD config, just make sure you restart the service. And there's other ways to do it. That's just one of them. If it's still not working for you, I would reboot the VM and see if that helps. So you would go here and then power off and restart. You can shut it down from here as well and then reopen it up. It should work too. Um, Another thing, I was having some trouble setting myself or my account to sudoers or whatever, super users. Um, so the way you do that is you'd first log into root like that, and then you go, I think it's user mod, something like user mod dash a g or something like that, sudo mat or something like that. I'm not sure if that's the right order. But once you run that, let me see if I can find that command. If I still have that. That's right here. User mod dash ag sudo and then the username you want to add. You can combine these two into one. So dash lowercase a, capital G, or you could separate them out. Either way is fine. And then it says to do log out and all that stuff. That did not work for me for whatever reason. So I actually had to completely restart the VM, showing what I did earlier. And once I did that, that worked. Just logging out did not work for me. I tried logging out like that. It said in that post, I tried logging out. Wait, how do you log out? I tried doing this to log out, log back in. That didn't work for me for whatever reason, so I had to actually restart the VM, or the VM, and that worked. A couple other things. So we already looked at that. The last issue you might have is this SSH suddenly returning an invalid format. Um, yeah, if that happens, then um, there's a couple things that could, at least for me, there's a couple things that were going wrong. So that file again is the private key that we copied over. So one thing you can do, or you want to do, is make sure there is a new line at the end of the file, which these guys are talking about. But you also want to make sure that you're using LF line endings. So, for example, this is using LF, and you can go into the file and change it easily in VS Code. Just switch back and forth. It was not working for me with CRLF. It was only working for LF. So make sure you do both those things. New line at the end of the file and LF. Then I was no longer getting that error of invalid format. All right, cool. Now I went over the Python stuff, so that's pretty much it. I took a little bit longer than I was hoping to show some of the other stuff, because if you're watching this video, you probably quit watching by now, because it doesn't cover the content that actually the title is talking about. But anyways, I just wanted to show that. Probably should have done a separate video for that, but sticking with the way I've been doing it so far, just doing stuff I've learned at the beginning of these videos. I don't know. And maybe I will do a separate video on that sometime, and we'll see. Anyways, using Pyodide in a web worker. So, like I said, I don't think this is going to be too hard. Let's just move some stuff around. Let's see. Still need to get back to this. So I have this worker that runs. Let's rename this worker. Nice way to rename stuff. There's two ways. You can do Control D. It goes to the next instance. But that's good if it's a smaller file, but sometimes you'll find some similar um, or the same variable named in different sections that are like inside of a function, and you don't want to rename everything like that. One way to do it is to do F2, and then it will rename everywhere. So this will be my, what is this? Solver. We'll call it LP, linear programming worker. So that's LP worker, and then we'll have uh, Pi worker equals new worker. We'll call this Pi worker.js. Call this LP worker. Let's rename that file. So this one is LP worker. And then we want to create a Pi worker. Let's copy this and paste it. Pi worker. Okay, LP worker, Pi worker. Cool. So that's that. Pyodide null. Okay. Let me make this a little bit larger. So we have our main function that gets called. That's okay. So let's compare it to what they have. Let me close this VM too, because I'm not going to be using it, and it takes up resources. So let's just close up this and close this out as well. Close this as well. Should be most of that stuff cleaned up now. Yeah. One other thing too is if I just got kind of a new computer. It had a bunch of stuff installed that was taking up a ton of resources that I would never use. So I just looked in the task manager, checked that, things that were using a lot of resources, and looked up what they did and if it was okay to uninstall them. And I did, and I think it helped. So I do recommend doing that if you just got a new computer. Another option would be just reformat it using a base Windows image instead, and it wouldn't have all that stuff installed. But I didn't want to deal with that, so I just uninstalled some stuff. But yeah, if I ever reformat, I'll most likely just grab a base Windows image and use that instead. So our goal is to have some Python run another thread, right? Okay. So within the worker is where you want to load Pyodide. What is load Pyodide actually? What does that do? Await load Pyodide. Is that... Oh, that's here. Okay. So you want to load that in the worker, is that right? Let me think about that. Yes, yes, definitely. Okay. So let's do that. Where do I have Pyodide? Pretty much my whole main function is going to be moved over there, right? Maybe not this Python code part, but I'm going to move it all over for now and move anything back that I want. Yeah. So here's PyWorker. Get rid of this. We'll get rid of this. It's not related, really. Okay. Init. Just paste this in there. I think I want the message stuff because this is like the main part of all the code. I want that up top, up here. And the main is like, I'll actually call this init. That's really what it is. Init. Let's see if I can come up with a better way to do this too. Like, why am I having something call this when I could just call it, right? I'll think about that. But for now, import scripts. Let's use this instead. Not gonna worry about that or that. What's this on runtime initialized? I don't think they have that at all. Hide ready promise. Where's that? Oh. Oh, right. That's load Pyodide. Okay. Okay, cool. Okay. Let me see this. So on message, await. So every time you await, I mean, every time you receive a message, is this executing the, is this, is this running this every time? I mean, it is, but why? Packages. I'm not sure you need to do this every time. You should be able to do it once, I think. Unless I don't understand how workers work. Um, let's remove this, just clean it up a little bit. I could always grab it from the other file if I forget. Another thing I want to check is make sure this is the same as what's in index. Yes. Okay. So this I actually don't need anymore. Let's see if there's anything else I can clean up here. Alright, that looks fine. Okay. And then okay. Let's do some testing for now, maybe. Okay, so init, it loads Pyodide. We could set that as a global. I think what they have some global stuff, right? Am I doing this right? Pyodide equals null. Um, Pyodide equals that. Yeah. I think I'm gonna use that setup I had before. So that was an after, right? Python code. So run Python async. Okay, so this is where it actually sends. Let me think about this. So my program is gonna run Python initially, and then, yeah, main code, run Python initially. Hmm. This is gonna be weird. Okay. Let's set up a PyWorker message. PyWorker on message function if type equal Py message for now. Then if data, then solution data. Let's just say constant on data. Data. Okay. Document. So you click. I actually want a button too. I like that. Yeah. It's just easier. I mean, not easier. It's just better visually to see it. I'm not clicking anywhere on the page. I'm actually clicking a button. So let's do button. Run. And then we'll do. Actually, let's do like a loading thing too. Just a div or something. A span and loading. And we'll do uh, minus equals loading loading status or something like that. And then we'll say, and we'll also add some CSS in here. I'm gonna need to eventually anyways. New file, style, CSS. And we'll just say hidden class is display, and then so when we run the loading status, we will toggle or we'll turn on hidden, and then whatever. By default, it'll be hidden. And actually, Instead of display none, what's the other one? Visibility? Visibility hidden, I think. Something like that. Probably a better way to do that, but all right. Let's see what this looks like now. Kind of going all over the place, but 54. Okay, laws on testing. I'm actually just gonna remove that. I don't need that. Okay, the text box and this loading. All right. Um, let's want a little bit of space there. Style. We'll add a temporary inline style. Padding, margin, top, 50 px. Is that how you do it? That's good. All right. We'll do 25. 50's a little too much. Okay, back to the other stuff I was working on. Okay, so let's just write the flow really quick, so it's easier to think about. So button clicked, calls. The first thing it gets called calls Python code to run solver. There's more to it. There's more to it in the future, but for now we have like all the data already there, and then I'll just run the solver. Okay, main py, and then that returns uh, MPS file data to JS, and then that calls Python code. Is it Python code? No, calls C++ code to run solver. Let's call this solver setup actually. And this actually runs a solver, and that returns solution file data, and then that calls, and then we're coming back. We have that, and then we return solution file data from JS function that was called by Python, which goes back to the Python. Okay, so this is in a worker, and these are the same thing, really. It's all in a worker. Yeah, so it doesn't really matter. Um, For now, let's grab once run button equals document dot get ID. Oh, where's the button? ID equals run button. Run button. Run button. Click. One thing here is if you have a lot of stuff on the page to be interacted with if you're using with regular JavaScript and not any library or framework. You can add a listener to the document and then just whatever the target is, when clicked, you just decide what to do based on that. But since I only have one thing I care about clicking on, this is fine. Let's see. So click. First thing I want to do actually is just make sure this is working. Run button. Let's say RBC. Run button clicked. All right. Just double check that's working. And this is why you check these things, because there we go. I actually had to clear the cache. That's getting called when I click. Okay. Okay, button clicked. Calls Python code to run solver. Okay, so let's go through that flow right now. So button clicked, if Python code, await. Right. So this is actually going to do a send message. I might want to clean this up. There's going to be a PyWorker dot send message, and the message it's going to send is going to have the um, what did I call that? Is there any other stuff I can close? I think I can close that and that. PyWorker message. I don't have anything it's looking for, which is fine, really. It's only going to receive one type of message. All right. So const data, or no, we'll say hi there code and uh, anything else. Not sure. For now, we'll just do that message data. Why is that happening? Message.data. And then const Python code. And then if code. Okay. And Pyodide. What? So you want to make sure there's code, and then that this is not null. And it's not null once it's been set here. Okay. I also want to send a message. I want to send a message once this is done. This part will come back here. Where's this? Come back to the app and load that. This will be loaded in like a main function. So let's do this. I could actually throw at the bottom of everything. That's not really going to do a whole lot. It's not going to change much. All right, so let's do a main, I guess, function main. Async. So this is Python code, returns Python code. Pyodide, we can get rid of that. Python code's that. Solution resolve. Okay. So we have a main function. Let's actually throw this down here too. Main function, and we'll call it down here. Okay. Main function sets the Pyodide code. Returns Python. Sets the Python code. Cool. And then this on message. Send message. Which is here. It's gonna send Python code. Okay. And this goes over here in PyWorker. This will eventually go in here. It'll eventually be run by that. Async. We do want it async, right? I think so. Do we? Not sure. Let me check one thing. This thing should be hidden now, right? So visibility hidden. So does that not work? I didn't include the CSS, style. Oh no, link. How do you do link CSS? There we go. All right. Okay, so it's hidden. Cool. Then we click on that. It will set. Fonts loading. This is only temporary for testing. Loading status. Document, get element by ID. Loading status. Oh, I'm thinking about I don't need this. Loading status. Okay. So app and then loading status. Dot class list dot remove hidden, and then they'll add it back once it's done loading or running. Huh, that doesn't even work, huh? Loading status, class list, remove hidden. Let's check. Oh, I have the old. Why is that not? Oh, I didn't publish? Probably. Can't forget that. There we go. Okay. All right. So process MPS file. Okay, so the main function gets called. It gets the Python code, returns it. Uh, let's just let it set it here and return it. It's Python code main call. And then if Python code. So technically I could add this listener after. Um, then I wouldn't have to do this check. Let's just do that, I think. And I could put this all in here. I don't need this anymore. Let Python code. Is that run button? So it attaches the listener after the Python code is loaded, and it has a reference to the Python code. And then if Py, so I don't need this anymore. I don't think. So PyWorker send message. Alright, so let's test just that part of it. PyWorker on message code, message data, Python code, and Pyodide. Receive by worker code. Okay, so this program should be fine and not do anything. But yeah, one thing I don't want to do is load Pyodide every time. Let me see, is that what they're doing? I think so. They're setting it on. They're setting it on the self, the global context, I guess. I think this should be fine though, the way I'm doing it. Pyodide is null. Okay. Pyodide init. We don't need this anymore. That's nice. Okay. We do need to call init. Okay, so Pyodide is null. Init gets called. It sets it. It sets it. It does this if it needs to. CSV data. Let me think about that. Await fetch data. This might be an issue, maybe. In fact, I actually want to move these. Move anything that has to do with the initializations, throw it up here. And then this is not going to be long term. This will be actually be passed in by the users, such as testing. Okay. Let's load package. So actually, I'm not even going to use this right now. So I'm just testing this, if this whole setup is working. Let's make sure. So Python code is that. It gets it from here. From here, and then it runs it, or it sets up the listener only after that's done. And the listener, when you click, it will send this. I'm actually gonna get rid of that for you as well. Okay. So let's see if that works by itself. My worker send message is not a function. Okay. My worker send message. Oh, post message. Do I have any other send messages? Post message. Cool. Seems to work. Message received by worker. Yeah, by worker. Python code. Okay. So it runs that. And PyWorker on message. Hmm. So loads Pyodide. That's already loaded. It receives it, shows it. Then we have the async run. And yeah. Alright, I do need to take a break and take care of something. I'll go for another minute or so. Take a break, and I should be back pretty quickly because yeah, it won't take too long. Oh. Message received by worker. So everything seems to be working fine, really. Hide gets initialized. Otherwise, it wouldn't be happening, or it wouldn't log this. And then, yeah, where is this data being written? Let's test this actually really quick. So let's see. Let's test two things: console.log, CSV data, and then the other thing is console.log, pyodide.fs.read dir um, dot, I think. Let's see what that looks like. See if we get that data. Should show without anything, without me doing anything, right? Yeah, so it has a CSV data. That's working. And it is in here. Okay, cool. Nice. Okay, so that testing should work. Okay, so this is all good. So this part here, for now, I think is all good. Self on message async. we do want to have some part where it's like making sure there's not some code already running. You don't want to run it twice. So we'll have some sort of thing to check that. Yeah, I gotta take a break. I'll be back. Thanks for watching.